For all of you, it is a great delight for me to be here with all of you today. And this is very special for me. So I was at Bethel from 1995 to 1997, back in the day when Awana first came to Bethel. And one of the pure joys I had was being able to be the game director for Awana, because my good friend was the children's pastor at Bethel when I was a college student at UC Irvine. So this is a long time ago, absolutely a long time ago. This building wasn't here. No, a lot of you probably weren't here as well, but this church has always been a blessing to so many people. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so grateful for this church. A lot of pastors came out of this church, a lot of elders, a lot of missionaries came out of the church. As a matter of fact, the children's director that was here is now a missionary, was a missionary in Cambodia, and now she is in Korea. And so it's amazing to see how God has worked in powerful ways through this church. So I'm grateful for Bethel. I'm also grateful for Pastor Brian. I've known Pastor Brian for a long time when he was at Cerritos Presbyterian Church. And he's been a blessing to us second-generation Korean American pastors. What a great brother, great influence, great mentor and leader, and so we're grateful for you as well for all that you have done. I know that he has made an indelible mark on one of my closest friends, Harold Kim, has been a wonderful blessing as well. So it's a wonderful delight, and I love this. I love the fact that all of you are together today as a family. It was wonderful to see the choir and to see all the kids and adults singing together. That is absolutely beautiful. You know, being born here, not knowing the very language very well, I've always identified myself as a Korean. As a matter of fact, this summer, my daughter, who is a freshman in college, is actually going to be going to Korea for 40 days. And she's going to Korea because of the fact that she's going to write a story on my mother-in-law's life. She's going to write her story about her experience. And so she's able to go and to talk about this. And so my family's going to join her in Korea as she writes this story about her grandma's life indeed. And what a beautiful thing. And our brother mentioned tomorrow is Mother's Day, and so we want to wish all the people, all the moms out there, a wonderful and beautiful Mother's Day. Know that you are loved, you are appreciated. That's why we have Mother's Day, to know that, to express our love for you and all that you have done. And I think it's appropriate that Oikos is in May, not in June. Because June is Father's Day. How come all the mothers always get the love? You know, you don't have, Family Day in June because it's about the mom at the end of the day. It's all about all the moms out there. So we are here to celebrate you indeed. And that's why today I think it was appropriate for me as I thought about Mother's Day. I kind of wanted to talk about the nature of love. Love. I'm not sure about all of you, but I'm a romantic, deep at heart. Right? I love Korean dramas. And the reason why I love Korean dramas is because I love the love stories. And so often the love stories are absolutely comical in every way. I love seeing the humiliation. I love seeing the sacrifices. I love seeing the hardships of what people are willing to go through to express their love. And so often these expressions are absolutely humiliating, but yet beautiful. There was a story about this one guy who wanted to propose to his fiancée. And proposals are always the best examples of where you see crazy love or extravagant love. So this guy thought, you know what, I'm going to propose to my wife, my future wife, and I'm going to do it at Seattle. Now in Seattle, there's this famous fish marketplace, right? Seattle in Pike Place, and they have a very famous fish market. And the reason why it's so famous is because if you ask for a fish, the guy behind the counter will throw it to you, right? So the object is you're supposed to catch the fish. Well, this guy thought, you know what, beautiful, I'm going to do this. So he brought his fiancée to Seattle. They're at this fish marketplace. And the guy goes, hey, you want a fish? He goes, yeah, give me a fish, but throw it to my girlfriend. He goes, okay, I got it. So he picked out the fish that he wanted. He goes, are you ready? And she's like, what? I don't want to do this. I'm nervous. She was all scared, right? And so he goes, okay, she goes, okay, I'm ready. So the guy took the fish and he threw it over the counter. And the fish is going all crazy, right? It's flopping in the air. And lo and behold, it's coming to her and she catches it, right? And everybody's clapping, all celebrating, right? But then someone said, hey, there's something in the fish's mouth. It was kind of shiny, right? And then she looked, and pinned to the mouth was the ring. And the guy sitting next to her said, will you marry me? Disgusting, I think, right? Right? Absolutely disgusting, but beautiful, humiliating, a little over the top, but I bet she will never, ever forget it again. And I don't know how he put that ring on her finger, but it must have been absolutely weird in every way. But don't you love stories like that? You know, I'm sure all of you have great love stories about how you proposed to your wife. I'm sure Pastor Brian has a good story about how he proposed to his wife. You can ask him one day what that was like. But the reason why it's so beautiful is because it's bold, it's extraordinary, it's humiliating, it's costly. It costs you your dignity, it costs you maybe your finances, it costs you your time. But it doesn't matter why, because you want that person to know how much you love them, especially when you're about to marry them. Have you ever been in that much love where no matter how much you do is not enough? You know, I have 3 children, and I love my children. My children are the joy of my life. And so for me, whenever it's their birthday, it's a big party. Right? I like to do the biggest party of all time, like mix celebrate. We're gonna bring everybody out. We're gonna do a big old thing. And my wife is not like that, right? She's like very simple, very calm, very peaceful, right? But I'm like, oh, yeah, we gotta do big things. Why? Because I want my kids to be celebrated. I want them to know how much they're loved. And thank God my wife is reasonable, because we'd be very poor, right, if we did what we wanted all the time. But that's what it is, right? Because you love that person so much that all you want to do is to let them know how much you love them. You see, that's what love does. Love does not think about the expense. Love does not think about your dignity. Love does not think about anything else except for the other person. And that's what we see today, a love that is absolutely sacrificial. A love that is absolutely self-giving. A love that is absolutely humiliating. But it's also a love that is misunderstood. Misunderstood. And finally, we see a love that is received by the one that truly matters. For you see, today in John chapter 12, it's a very pivotal point in the book of John. And the reason why I say this, because everything changes. Why? Because here, beginning in John chapter 12, Jesus is on his way to Jerusalem to die. As a matter of fact, from John 12, you don't see Jesus doing all these public miracles anymore. Jesus spends time with those who are closest to him. Jesus spends time with his disciples. Why? Because he knows that he's about to go and die. But understand what happened in John chapter 11 too. In John chapter 11, we see perhaps Jesus' greatest miracle. And the reason why, because Jesus just raised Lazarus from the dead. He raised Lazarus from the dead. And so what happens here is that Mary and Martha, who are Lazarus' sisters, decide to throw Jesus a party. Why not? Because their brother who is dead is back alive again. So they throw him a party, and they're super excited, and people are there. And they're gathered together. You can only imagine the conversation. Hey, Lazarus, what it was like to be dead? Hey, Lazarus, were you cold? Lazarus, were you scared? All these kind of questions. Or Lazarus, when he heard your name, was it weird to come alive again? And you can only imagine the questions. And then all of a sudden, somebody stands up out of nowhere. It is not Martha, who is busy serving. But out of nowhere, we see Mary coming to this group of men. Understand that women do not do this. When the men are gathered together, the women were supposed to be separate. But Mary doesn't care. She's so courageous, that she's so bold, that she comes in front of all these men. And all the men are looking at her, and she's holding something in her hand. Something that was very precious to her. Perhaps it was a family heirloom. Something that was very precious to the family. And that's what we do know it was. It was a jar of ointment. It was not any ordinary jar. It was a jar made out of pure nard. As a matter of fact, this perhaps could have been her most greatest possession that she had. It was worth a year's wage. Think about that. Something that costs a year's wage. Some of you make $100,000, right? Imagine that. $100,000 gift, right? That's what this thing was. It was worth a year's wage. And they're all wondering, why is she bringing this out? So often people say that this jar of ointment was used when people die. And what you do is you take the ointment and you put it on the dead body so it doesn't smell so bad. Maybe that's why she brought it out, because you see, Lazarus was dead and she didn't have the opportunity to do that, and therefore she wanted to do this for Jesus. And so they're wondering what's going to happen. Then out of nowhere, she takes that jar and she begins to pour it over Jesus. And they're all wondering, what in the world is going on? What are you doing? To the point, she didn't just simply put a drop and say, oh, here's a little bit for you, Jesus, I'm going to take the rest of it. No, she empties the jar where the whole house is smelled with the fragrance of that perfume. She gave everything, her most precious gift, her most costly gift. She gave it to Jesus. Why? Because she had her brother back. And she knew what Jesus meant to her. You see, Jesus was her everything. You see, nothing was good enough for Jesus. Why? Because Jesus gave her everything. He was her life. He was her joy. He was the very Word of God itself. And that's why for her, she thought, you know what can I give? And it was an extravagant gift because it was absolutely sacrificial. She was not willing to lay aside any expense. She didn't care how much it was. All she wanted to do was, Jesus, I want you to know how much I love you. I want you to know how much you mean to me. And how would he know? Because she did not hold back her greatest possession, this jar of perfume. And Mary's not stupid. She's not ignorant. She knows exactly how much this jar is worth. But at the same time, she also knows how much Jesus is worth. She knew that Jesus is worth everything. Jesus is the object of her gift. Jesus is the object of her life and love. And she's seen the value. She just saw Jesus raise Lazarus back from the dead. Her brother that she loved, and Jesus brought that brother back. Whenever we see Mary, she's always at the feet of Jesus, always listening to Jesus. And whenever he spoke, the words that he spoke were like life to her. So Jesus was her life. She knew exactly who he was and that he was worthy to be worshiped with all that she had. She wasn't thinking about the smallest amount that she could give, but she could only think about extravagance. You know what? Everyone may have thought this was crazy, but for her it was simply not enough because that is how much she loved Jesus. In the same way, I wonder how much you and I love Christ. How much is Jesus worth to you? Because you see, what you sacrifice tells you the value of what Jesus means to you. You see, Judas Iscariot betrayed Jesus for what? 30 pieces of silver. You see, Jesus was only worth 30 pieces of silver, but for this woman, it was worth her most greatest possession. Because you see, if you value the object in your life, you're willing to give whatever you have. But if you do not value the object in your life, you're only willing to give the bare minimum. So therefore, the question we have to ask ourselves is, how much is Christ worth to you? When I was in college, there was this girl that I liked, my friend. Liked him a lot. So she came to me, she said, James, I'm gonna tell him in a year from now, that I like him. I said, don't do this. He doesn't like you. I'm telling you, he doesn't like you. I don't care. I'm gonna tell him how much I like him. And so she said, you know what I'm gonna do for every day for 365 days? I'm gonna make him 10 origami cranes. You know those little origami crane thingy-majiggies, right? I'm gonna make him 10 origami cranes, and on that day, I'm gonna come and I'm gonna bring it to him, and I'm gonna tell him that I love him. I said, don't do this. He doesn't like you. I know him. So literally a year later came, and she came to my house. She goes, hey, James. I said, yeah. She goes, remember what I told you a year ago? I said, what? She goes, today's the day. I said, day for what? I'm gonna tell him how much I like him. And then I saw her, she had baskets of these origami cranes, and I totally forgot. She actually made 3,650 origami cranes. And I saw a train wreck about to happen because I knew that he didn't like her. So she goes, she brings all these origami cranes. She said, hey, I know. She goes, hi. And he goes, hey. And she goes, I know this is going to be weird, but I wanted to let you to know something. I want you to know how much I love you. I've cared about you. I've cared about you for this past year. And every day that I thought about you, I made these origami cranes, 3,650 origami cranes. And the thing is, he looked at her and he goes, you know what? I just want to be friends. You know, thank you so much, but I just don't feel the same way about you. And she goes, it's okay. All I wanted to know how much I love you. You see, that was extravagant. That was beautiful. So my friend, he liked another girl. And he thought, wow, this is brilliant. So he took the 3,650 origami cranes, went to the girl that he liked and said, hey, for the past year, I've thought about you and I liked you. And I made you all these origami cranes, right? And I want you to know how devoted and how beautiful you are to me. That guy, right? He's that guy, right? And you laugh at this and you say, how in the world can you do this? But yet you and I do the same thing when it comes to Christ. We say, God, we love you, but what we do, we take over the leftover gifts that we get, and we say, God, here you go. But there's no sacrifice. There's nothing that you gave up. You're simply taking the leftovers or whatever you don't want, say, God, here you go. Right? We give God only 10% of our tithe, but we say, God, I'm going to keep the 90% to myself. When was the last time you sacrificed to say, God, this is how much I love you? We're just like my friend who said, oh, you know what? I liked you, but yet he did nothing. But for Mary, she said, no, I'm going to show you how much I love you. I'm going to give you my most precious possession, this pure nard. And she did not simply put a drop over him, but she poured the whole bottle and gave it to him. But it's not only that, but what else did she do? the Bible tells us that, you know what, when the jar of perfume poured, Matthew and Mark talk about how Jesus poured over his head, but John focuses on the feet. And what does she do? She kneels and she begins to wash the feet of Jesus. She begins to wash the feet of Jesus. More than her sacrifice, we see her humility. Why? Because there was nothing that she was not willing to do for Jesus. She was willing to be his servant. Understand, there was nothing more demeaning, nothing more disgusting than washing someone's feet. Back then, not even the slaves were required to wash the feet of your guests. Nobody wanted to wash other people's feet because there was nothing more humiliating than for a person to wash your feet. And that is why in John 13, the chapter after, what does Jesus do? He goes to his disciples when nobody wants to wash each other's feet. But what does Jesus do? He picks up the basin and the towel and he washes the feet of his disciples to show them that he is their servant, that he will do whatever to serve them, to love them. And that's exactly what Mary is doing here. She's lowering herself to wash the feet of Jesus. Because you see, he is the one who must increase, and she is the one who must decrease. Pastor Joseph Ryan says this: Mary is giving up her rights before the Lord. There's nothing he cannot ask of her. In other words, touching his feet becomes her pledge of unconditional service. Or as another pastor points out, it means that the most menial thing that she might do for Jesus is not beneath her, but is actually above her. So glorious and great is the Lord Jesus Christ. He's saying the most menial, most lowest thing that she can do for Jesus is not beneath her, but it's above her. Why? So great and glorious is the Lord Jesus Christ. She says, no, this is honorable for me. It's a privilege for me to wash the feet of Jesus. This is not menial. This is not lowly. Why? Because he's my Savior, and I'm willing to do anything for him. I am his servant. You know what? Michael Jordan is my favorite basketball player, right? If Michael Jordan said to me, James, he came to me one day and said, James, untie my shoe. I'd be like, oh, it's Michael Jordan. Oh, of course I will untie your shoe. Because I love Michael Jordan, right? I would be like, yeah, here we go. Now, if Pastor Brian told me, hey, James, I want you to untie my shoe, I'd be like, tie your own shoe, right? In that way, right? Why would I do that in that way? But that's what it is. Because you see, she sees the immeasurable worth of Jesus, that washing his feet is not lowly, it's actually above her. You see, the thing is, for many people, it's a lot easier to give, but it's a lot harder to serve. People are willing to give their money, give their sacrifices that way, but a lot of people are not willing to give up their time to serve the church, to come early, to pass out the programs, or to come and be part of the choir, or to come and to teach Sunday school, or they come to serve, to work in the kitchen, or whatever it may be. Because to them, they feel like it's too lowly. I'm better than that. I should be teaching the Bible. I should be presiding the service. No, there's nothing too low when it comes to Jesus. Why? Because of the value and the worth of who he is. He is the Lord. And Mary is washing the feet of Jesus. But not only is she washing the feet of Jesus, but she does something even more humiliating. So here she comes, she gives her the most precious sacrifice. She's at her feet, washing his feet, right, to show that I'm your servant. But this is the last thing that she does. She washes the feet of Jesus with her hair. Her hair. She unties her hair and she washes the feet. And you're thinking, what in the world is going on? Understand, a woman never lets down her hair in public. Only her husband was to see the glory of her hair. Be it in any woman that brings her hair down in public, you were considered to be a prostitute, a very loose woman, a woman that got around in the city. So no woman would ever put down her hair, but she puts down her hair for Jesus. Because she's saying to Jesus, not only my service, not only my possessions, I'm giving you all of me. All of me. You see, that's what it is. You see, God does not need our money. God owns everything in the world. God does not need our service because, remember, he has angels serving him. What God needs from us is us. He wants all of us, our hearts, our soul, our mind, our everything, our nakedness. He wants us to be real and vulnerable and transparent. He wants us. If she lets down her hair, She doesn't care what people are mocking her and laughing at her and saying, what is she doing? Is she a prostitute? She don't care. She wants Jesus to know not only my money, not only my service, I want you to have all of me, my heart, my soul, my mind. She lets down her hair. I have another friend who's about to get married, and she was waiting for her fiance to propose to her. So she came over to my house, and we're hanging out, and I went to her house. We're hanging out, her mom and I were hanging out in the kitchen. All of a sudden, the doorbell rings, and her boyfriend that comes. And he's got 7 boxes, big to small, little blue box on top, and roses. And I thought, oh, this is it. This is it. My friend's gonna get proposed to. So the mom grabs me. We were in the kitchen. We're spying on this, right? And she opens the first box. It was a dress. Second box was a pair of pants. Third box was a shirt. Fourth box was a purse. Fifth box was a wallet. I forget what the 6th box was. And it came to the 7th box. That's all I cared about. And she was so excited. And I saw the joy in my friend's face. And then she started opening that blue box. And the mother-in-law, my friend's mom was gripping on my hand, and we're all looking, and she opens the box, and guess what it was? It was a necklace. And her mom and I like, what is that, right? And then we thought, what the heck? And then my friend went crazy. She got so mad that she took all 7 boxes, and she just threw it at him. And she said, I don't want these things anymore. All I want is you. When are you going to ask me to marry you? I said, you go, girl. You tell them as it is, right? When are you going to ask me to marry you? I want all of you. And that's exactly what Mary is doing. She's saying, she's saying, you know what? Not only my sacrifices, not only my service, but I'm giving you myself. I'm giving you myself. You see, that's what love does. Love does not hold back. Love serves. But love gives everything of herself. Are you willing to give up yourself? You see, not everyone understood this love. Not everyone appreciated this love. As a matter of fact, Judas was indignant. He says, why wasn't this perfume sold and the money given to the poor? It was worth a year's wage. In other words, he sees what she does as being a royal waste of money. Because as a matter of fact, the money could have been used for better purposes. It could have been used to help the poor people. But you see, the Bible tells us he didn't care about the poor, because he was a thief. As a keeper of the money bag, he used to help himself to what was put into it. In other words, Judas was simply being a hypocrite. You see, all he thought about was, you know what, I lost an opportunity to make more money. You see, this act that she does exposes his own heart. Rather than seeing the nature of his own heart, he tries to hide behind his religiosity to cover up his sin. As one writer says, he was thinking about waste while Mary was thinking about worship. Judas was thinking about efficiency when Mary was thinking about extravagance. Judas was being selfish, but Mary was being selfless. And why was that? Because you see, it's what Jesus meant to each one of them. For Judas, Jesus was a means to an end. In other words, he used Jesus to get richer. He stole from the money bag. He used Jesus to get power. He used Jesus to get significance. He used Jesus to be somebody. In other words, he didn't love Jesus. He simply used Jesus. But for Mary, Jesus was the end. Jesus was the end. She didn't need anything from him because he was already her everything. But for Judas, no, he used Judas, to benefit his own life. He simply got mad because of the fact that he was not able to benefit from the situation. And I wonder how many of us do the same thing. The reason why we don't value, the reason why we don't sacrifice, or we don't give up, we don't serve, or we don't give up all of ourselves is because of the fact that we don't value Jesus. We use Jesus to benefit our life. We use Jesus so that our life can get richer. We use Jesus so that we can make our lives better. But is Jesus the end for you? Because you see, if Jesus is your everything, then you will give up everything for the sake of Jesus, not using Jesus so that you can benefit for yourself. You see, that is the difference. And the world will think, you know what we do on every Sunday, like right now on Sunday morning, they're here, they're thinking, what a waste of time, you're crazy. But you know what, they don't understand what we know. We know the love of Jesus. They may say it's a waste, but we say it's love. Why? Because we know exactly what Jesus has done for us. And you know what, the person that matters most to Jesus is the one who speaks up. He says, leave her alone. Leave her alone. for she saved this for the day of my burial. For the poor you will always have with you, but you will not always have me. He says, leave her alone. She saved this for the day of my burial. In other words, Jesus is saying to her, what she's doing is absolutely beautiful in its timeliness. My professor, Edmund Clowney, once said, this was beautiful in its timeliness. Why? Because she knew that Jesus was going to die. She knew that this was going to be the last time that she saw Jesus. And she wanted Jesus to know how much he loved her. Haven't you ever gone to a funeral and you put that rose on top of the casket and you said to yourself, why didn't I give this rose when that person was still alive? Why didn't I give this person one so that they would know how much they're loved? But you give it to them when they're dead. What good is it to give it when they're dead? And for Mary, she said, you know what? I need to show Jesus how much I love her, to give it to her while she's alive. And that's why she does this. It's beautiful in its timeliness. And Jesus says to her, leave her alone, for she saved this for the day of my burial. The poor you will always have with you, but you will not always have me. What Jesus is saying to them is, do you understand what she is doing? Because if you don't understand what she is doing, then you will not understand what I'm about to do. She saved this for the day of my burial. Don't you see? I'm about to go and die. Don't you see that I am God's wasted possession for you? I am God's greatest possession, who became a servant, who being the very nature God did not consider equality with God something to be grasped, but made myself nothing and became in the form of a servant. You see what Jesus is saying? If you think this is crazy, what Mary is doing, then what do you think about what I'm about to do? Don't you understand that God loves you so much, he gave up his greatest possession, Jesus, his only begotten Son. And Jesus is the one who left the glory of heaven for you. Jesus is the one who was God, but yet emptied himself. It became like you and me. It became a servant. And he became obedient to death, even death on a cross. He wasted Jesus on you. Have you ever thought about this? The story about extravagant love is not about Mary. You're thinking about, wow, Mary's awesome. If you think Mary's awesome, then how about God, who gave up his only begotten Son, who became a servant, who with very nature God did not consider quality God, but made himself nothing. And you see, when Mary does it, she does it because Jesus is worthy. But when God does it, he does it for you and me. Who are we that God should give up his most greatest possession? Who are we that God should become nothing and become a servant? Who are we that God should serve us? That is mind-blowing. You can justify why Mary does what she does, but why would God do this for us? Because that's what love does. Love does not think about themselves, but love thinks about the other. No, the story about Mary is only to be a picture, a pointer to the most extravagant love of all, God's love for you. And when you know that love, then you too become like him, being sacrificial, service, and you give up all of yourself. That's what's so mind-blowing about this. She saved this for the day of my burial. The poor you will always have with you, but you will not always have me. And why won't he be around? Because he will die for you. My brother and sister, this is the love of God. This is what we need to know, this love. And I pray that you will know this love so that you would respond like Mary did and give up your possessions, your service, and your life. Let us pray.